The scale of the protests have been reduced in recent days. This after the junta deployed more soldiers and armoured vehicles out on the streets. For more on this story, we can bring in our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Good to see you, Doug. Hello. Firstly, is what we are seeing a prelude to a wider, more brutal crackdown by the military, similar to what we've seen in the past?
You clearly can't rule it out, right? You're absolutely right. In the past, the military junta has had control of this country for about half a century since its independence in 1948. And we saw bloody reprisals, a bloody crackdown after military takeovers, both in 1988 after a student uprising, and then back during the so-called Saffron Revolution in 2007, which you had a lot of monks which were on the receiving end of this bloody crackdown by the military. Has their DNA changed? Are they somehow congenitally now not inclined to take the same types of measures they have in the past? No. There's more digital technology today. There's more of the world watching. We have more of these images of what's going on inside Myanmar with the social media platforms, images getting out. The people are more aware of what is going on. They know that people are more aware. Is that going to change their behavior? Well, no. What are we seeing? We're seeing tanks in the street in many of the biggest cities. We've had the use of rubber bullets, water cannon, and also reports of live rounds in some cases being used. We know that last week a young woman, 20 years old, she was hit in the head by a live round of fire. She is still in critical condition in the hospital. Is there more of that to come? Well, look, we already have a sneak preview. Just in case you forgot, this is a coup d'etat. And what do coup d'etats include? They include bringing tanks into the street. They include very strict sentences against those who try to oppose the will of the junta taking over. In this case, the military's latest thing is they are promising long sentences, perhaps up to 20 years imprisonment for anyone who, quote, incites hatred or contempt against the military rulers. That's not just a signal. That is a clear statement of intent. They are not going to stand for any dissent. We've seen tens of thousands of people in the street. But what we also see now are these raids at night, the military coming onto the street, intimidation, fear. Even though people are defiant, they are scared and they're in their houses right now, especially at night, because they are rounding up anyone trying to snuff out any sign of dissent in their midst, especially the civil disobedience campaign, the government workers.
Doug, most of the world and people out on the streets in Myanmar clearly see this as a power grab by generals in Myanmar. They themselves have a different take on the situation.
Yeah, no, a different take, a 180-degree, diametrically opposed vision. They are in a hermetically sealed bubble when their worldview is concerned. What seems obvious to millions of people, not just in Myanmar, but also on the outside watching the horrific, how atrocious this is, that this abrupt end to 10 years of democratic transition with all the civilian leadership rounded up and thrown in jail. The military doesn't see it that way at all. And you could say, well, they're just being cynical. They know exactly what they're doing. They genuinely, a lot of them, perhaps even the commanding officer, genuinely believes that they are doing the right thing to preserve Myanmar's democracy. They're turning the logic completely on its head. It reminds me a little bit of the Trump insurrectionists. I know it's a world away, but the same sort of mentality. You go on a riot against your own government, you practically lay waste to the Capitol in this case, thinking you're doing the democratic bidding. You are the Democrats. The military thinks they are saving Myanmar's democracy from the ineptitude, the incompetence of the National League for Democracy of Aung San Suu Kyi, which they believe lost these elections. What they really know in their heart of hearts is that it was a landslide in favor of the civilian leaders. They are shocked at it. They are not just upset. They're horrified, and they're not going to let it happen.
Doug, finally, what can the international community do, given that this coup would not have happened without the go-ahead by Beijing, without Beijing being informed?
Exactly. China is obviously the big player here, with tons of interest in the region. China and Russia have refused to condemn this as a coup in those words at the United Nations Security Council. I said last week, I'll say it again, they continue to be, China, backed by Russia, continues to be the main spoiler, if you will, when it comes to firm will or resolve of the international community in trying to see down this coup. Now, short of soldiers, international soldiers in the streets, that's not going to happen anytime soon. What can you do? Well, sanctions, targeted sanctions, going after the generals. The Biden administration has said they're going to do it. There were already new sanctions imposed after the crackdown against the Rohingya Muslim minority in 2017 with Aung San Suu Kyi at the time's consent. Will that be enough? Probably not. Were sanctions enough in the case of Vladimir Putin in Russia? Probably not. Often the people are the ones who end up getting hurt by the sanctions. So what do you do? it's almost like a lose-lose situation unless you have the concerted will of a lot of Myanmar's immediate regional allies. The U.S. and Europe can say and do all they want. They can slap all the sanctions they want. But at the end of the day, China is going to have a very big say in this, and also other regional neighbors, from Korea to Japan to others who have business interests, who don't want to see too much instability, and they know that they also have interest to preserve there. It's cynical, but that's also geopolitics for you.
I wonder what India has to say in the weeks to come.
That will be fascinating to see, because they haven't said anything yet, to my knowledge.
Just keeping an eye out on
Yeah.
what's happening, clearly. Doug, thank you very much for that. Douglas Herbert there.